Welcome, everybody, to the 2024 Law Firm Growth Conference. My name is Alay Yajnik, Managing Partner of Law Firm Success Group. Thank you so much to our sponsors and our speakers, without whom we really couldn't have done this conference. They have given their time, they have given their energy, they have given their enthusiasm, and I'm deeply grateful to them for being here. All right. Again, as I said, my name is Alay Yajnik, Managing Partner of Law Firm Success Group. For over a decade, Law Firm Success Group has guided law firm owners to build law firms that provide them with the income they want, the vacation they need, and the quality of life that they deserve. More income, better clients, less stress. It's not only our motto, it's our goal. So we have a ton of topics today to help you increase your income. We're going to hear about branding. We're going to hear about selling. And yes, if you're an attorney, you are in sales. We're going to hear about how you can leverage LinkedIn, how you can succeed at networking, whether you're an introvert or not, how to build the global brand from your kitchen table, and how to maximize the success of those consultations and get those fee agreements signed. So we have some incredible speakers with some wonderful talks set up, but here's the thing. You're going to get out of this what you put into it. One thing that stands between you and success that I want to mention right now, it's the lawyer brain. And I get it. You've been sold false promises by unethical salespeople. You've probably sacrificed your family time and your personal time to do life-changing work for a client, only to have them argue about 50 bucks on their bill. So I understand it's easy to get skeptical, to think that you can't make the money you want and have the life you want. And this skeptical voice in your head, you have to understand it's going to sabotage your success, not only today, but every day. So for this conference, open yourself up to possibilities. Become a student again. You will hear about game-changing ideas. Hear from law firm owners who have built amazing law firms. It's totally possible. We see it every day with our clients. You can make more money while taking more time off and doing the things you love. And it's events like this that light the spark. So now I want your commitment. If you joined early, you know we're using the chat function. I want you to use that right now. Are you ready to transform your law firm? Type YES into the chat. Are you ready to reclaim your time? Are you ready to love your firm again? And are you ready for more income, better clients, and less stress? I'm seeing lots of yeses, so let's get started. Our first speaker today is Mary Neitlich. She is a founding partner of EM Consultants and a leader in law firm marketing, business development solutions, and strategic planning. She has over 25 years of experience, and she provides attorneys and law firms with tools to grow their business and to successfully identify, court, and convert leads and targets into clients. She has a ton of branding experience. In fact, she's been an active member of the Legal Marketing Association, serving as the national VP and co-chair of the International LMA Conference. She's been published in many publications, including JD Supra, the National Law Journal, and it just goes on and on. Mary is actually a fellow in the prestigious College of Law Practice Management, and in 2017, she was inducted into the Legal Marketing Association Hall of Fame. Mary, welcome to the Law Firm Growth Conference.
Thank you. I thought I should unmute so people could hear me. It's wonderful to be here with everyone. Happy Tuesday. Of course, it's, always seems to be me that has to lead off the conference and set the tone. So no pressure here. One of the things that I frequently get asked is, how have you been in law firm marketing for so long? Almost 3 decades. And the answer is really simple. When I was 10 years old, one day I went to my parents and I said, when I grow up, I want to be a law firm marketing consultant. Yeah, said nobody ever. Law firm marketing didn't even exist when I first got into it. It was just when advertising was allowed. I was around when fax machines came in. And then email came, and we all know many partners that have, all of us who've been around for a while, were really resistant to that, but not as resistant as they were to when websites came out. And then, of course, we all adopted, and then branding came out. And there was a lot of kerfuffle about that. Like, is this really a thing? Do I need to do this? Is this going to just fade out? And then, of course, came more social media and more refined websites. And now today, social media has even changed again with Google Analytics shifting and trying to get on that page when people are searching for you. There's a new tool that we're using where we use AI not to write content, but to analyze and find out how to get more people that are in your target market to see your posts. So things are morphing constantly. Today, we are going to have an interactive presentation. And I'm going to stop after each of 3 segments and ask for your questions. So you can challenge, and whatever comes to mind that you want to know about, I'm happy to try and respond to that. Branding is the strategic backbone of law firm marketing. And Alay has 2 articles that if he hasn't sent, he will be sending with direct links to them so that you can reinforce what we've talked about a little bit today. So without further ado, I'm going to share and we'll get started. The question is really brand effect, is it effective? And does it have any kind of an impact? We know, we know that, of course, it does. What do we know about law firm branding? Well, it's nothing more than a claim of distinction. A lot of branding consultants use the telescope and look out into the marketplace, and they're looking to see, what does the marketplace have to say about all of this? We use a different process, rather, where we turn the telescope and we look inward into the law firm. We will spend 2 to 3 hours collecting facts about that law firm, their history, their practice areas, their aspirations for the future, technology, how they deal with clients, how they deal with competition, how they deal with business development, marketing. Just imagine 2 hours, almost sometimes 3 hours of responses. And what we do with all those facts is we whittle them down to the top 3 to 5 most unique selling points. Those are the things that get said over and over during this 2 to 3 hour process. And it's finding them worded differently and realizing this is really the essence of this law firm. Excuse me. And so once we have that, we will create 2 brand stories for the law firm based on the same 3 selling points. And they're slightly different because we know that the firm might want to be a little more like this or like this. And each brand story offers 6 taglines or positioning lines. And once we pick a direction with the brand story and a tagline, we're then in a position to create these 3 to 4 sentences that are brand essence. This has to go on your homepage. I know we've all been to websites where maybe they're not even law firms, but just some are, where you get to the homepage and you really don't quite understand their practice areas, what they do. Sometimes law firms have just a very narrow focus, perhaps tax law, hospitality, but there's nothing right up front that grabs you and lets you know that. So a job is to take a tagline and a brand essence statement that coordinate together to compel and let you know exactly what's going on. Today, we're going to look at 3 different stories, 3 brands of 3 different law firms. And I'm going to show you different aspects of branding in each one so that it makes sense to you. And hopefully you can, after each segment, we will have Q&A. So we'll have 3 opportunities for you to ask questions, to challenge, whatever's coming to your mind about this process. The first story has to do with the firm's 3 to 5 unique selling points. In this case, they had 3. And finding them was a challenge, but it became eminently clear after we did a deep dive, and I'm going to share those with you. And then we'll take some questions. And then the second story we'll look at today has to do with how you can develop a new product, a new service offering, a new practice area, a new business. And if you have a clear value proposition and a brand, it should how it's applied to the website, to social media, and PR to make this new thing really ring and start to drive revenue as quickly as possible. And the third story we'll look at today was a law firm that had new leadership for the past 4 years. And it was time for them to have a nod to the old leadership and the old brand, but how do you meld those and make it meaningful? So let's just jump right into our first one. The first law firm is ARC IP Law. Their tagline they used was ARC Accelerate Your IP. It was trademarked, but we felt that we could do something a little more powerful. So working with our web developer, Bob Van Elk, who I believe is on this call, Bob came up with a brand new powerful logo, which you can see is more, the colors are more vibrant. And he used the circle, like the registered trademark kind of circle, to, sort of make it kind of fun. And this law firm opted to do something interesting. They took two of the taglines and we made one a headline, intellectual property done right. And the second one was the tagline of the firm, we create enhanced IP solutions. So we have to pay that off. We can't just say that. So let's look at how we went about doing that. These are their three unique selling points. The first one, we plan IP based on the impact of each client's future growth and success. We stay in touch over the long term, acting as their outside general counsel. Finally, we get creative with each client's inventions, adding additional patents and ways to drive revenue. We are the inventor's helper. They use that phrase a lot, and I thought it was interesting. So when I got to know the firm and understood that these were their three unique selling points, Bob and I were able to work together to create a brand new website that was branded looking at each of these things. It was uncanny how important it was for their clients to really understand that they would take one patent and potentially make multiple because they saw ways to grow the business. Or as outside general counsel, how do they do that? Well, they don't do tax law, they don't do business litigation, but they have relationships and they sort of work with the client as the center spoke and make referrals as necessary and help the client. And they stay with them over time to hopefully find new ways to patent and other ways to expand to drive revenue. I thought this was really interesting and unique. So this is what we came up with as their brand essence statement that's on their homepage. A unique approach to IP law. Every client engagement begins by taking time to understand how to obtain the intellectual property that's most important to your business. We then accelerate your IP to obtain strategic properties that make business sense. Striving to go beyond the ordinary, we expand your IP portfolio in business in crucial areas. So this is what we call that brand essence statement, those 3 to 4 sentences that appear on the homepage. And then it clicks right to IP, more IP expertise, and you can read about it. We loaded their website with case studies because they do so many different types of IP law in working in different areas. And we wanted clients, potential clients, referral sources to get it immediately and not have to make it difficult to find. This is their homepage. This was actually Bob's idea. These were some of their original drawings that they crafted for different patents. And there's a slideshow of several of them to give you an indication of some of the kind of interesting things that they've done. And they've had a lot of media and because they've done some really unusual kinds of things. And you can see the brand essence statement right here on the homepage, including their Accelerate Your IP, which was important to them to maintain, but it's no longer their positioning line. This is what it looks like when you go to the practice areas page. And on this page, every page, Bob thought of this idea of doing the definition of each of their practice areas, and then we go through the explanations. And so this became really important to use on social media, on the website, in all client communications, this information about their brand and how every page has something about it that shows you what their brand stands for. So that is ARC IP law. And I'm just wondering if there are any questions. I haven't looked in the chat, but let me take a look. Oh, I see that Alay put in the links to the articles in there if you want to copy those. And Alay, were there any questions in the question section? Oh, do you have magic fairy dust? How do you possibly get partners in a branding session to agree on a tagline? Wow, yeah, that's really challenging. And we don't use magic pixie dust. I wish I had it. It is really challenging, and it depends on the size of the committee, because sometimes you'll have a committee that is very large, could be 15, 16 people. Sometimes it's 2 or 3, and it takes a while to get people to buy in. Our goal is to get the brand line and brand story accepted the day we roll this all out to them. Sometimes it takes a partner meeting or 2. And there are sometimes, many times, 1 or 2 partners that do not agree, but over time, the brand just takes on a life and then everybody acquiesces. It doesn't always happen on the first day because I don't have that pixie dust. So let's go back to our PowerPoint. I guess I have to do this each time. Okay. It doesn't seem to be sharing. It says it's sharing. It says I'm screen sharing, but yet I am not seeing.
Was one of your slides a blank screen?
It was, but I'm trying to go beyond that, and it's not doing that. It's not moving down. Stop. Try that again. Yeah, that's it, but it should go to the next slide, but it's not. Leave.
I can share my screen for you if you like.
Yep, that would be great.
All right, no problem.
So as we're teeing this up, the second one we're going to look at, as Alay is pulling that up, is a gentleman who was a partner in an AM law firm, David Wood. And David was a very successful partner. He had a $6 million book of business. And he spent his last 2 years at Barnes and Thornburg transitioning that to the next generation of partners. You know, we all know succession planning is important, right? Everybody knows the why, but David actually does the how. And so he finally has a succession planning worth planning for. And the idea is he does motivational speaking to law firm for retreats, to partner meetings, conferences, and then firms will sometimes hire him to actually implement that, because we know how expensive it is to lose a client or a big book of business. Well, in David's case, $6 million. He transitioned every penny of that. So that's kind of really interesting. Next slide, please. This is on David's website as well, on the homepage. And we have a video of David talking and explaining the concepts, which is good, especially when you're a motivational speaker and you want people to hire you. You want to give them a snippet. And he talks about that, but it's important to have that video right on the homepage. Next slide, please. We worked with an outside PR firm in addition to the website, applying everything to social media, involving clients, referral sources, in blogs, in quotes. And the PR firm was able to, in a short time, within 10 months from when we started, get him 10 speaking engagements. These are just representative. It's a screenshot of some. It's davidwoodconsulting.com if you want to see them all and read the ones that are not behind a paywall. And he has a lot of great blogs on there. And some of this happened from my connections with people, because I've been in legal marketing for 800 years. And some happened working with the PR firm, who did an incredible job. Next slide, please. And these are some of the speaking appearances he's done or are upcoming. We were able to get him in front of American Lawyer Media, their managing partner and general counsel, roundtables to speak about succession planning. And why were they interested when there's so many consultants that have been talking about succession planning for so long? Well, it's because David actually did it. And his writing is cogent and clear, and he gives away a lot of information in his blogs. and in these articles. He's been on podcasts. He's had things republished in JD Super that he published somewhere else. He's just been really successful. And a key is because he had a $6 million book of business, he actually does all the marketing stuff, right? Like I don't have to beat him up like I do sometimes with clients, because when someone is used to doing that, it really has been very powerful and very helpful. So he's now starting his second year, and it's just been remarkable to watch his success in doing this. Do you have questions about anything about that, what we did with David, or how the PR worked, or how the branding worked, or was applied to social media? Okay, LA, were there any questions in the questions? I see one. How did you work with the PR agency to get David so many writing and speaking opportunities? It was a process. And then a second question came up of how we applied it to social media. Because I've been in law firm marketing for so long, and I've been in college, part of it was my connections with some high-level people in this industry who we connected David to, who immediately could refer clients to him. So that was one aspect. And then the PR firm, we coordinated every 2 weeks. We had a call. What are we doing for our business development? They don't do business development, but they had so many connections and were able to get him interviews with reporters. And they had some cachet with these high-level publications. And so by coordinating with them, that worked. In terms of how we did this on social media, it's an ongoing process. David is a thought leader, and I'm very lucky because he likes to write. So a lot of times we'll use a blog, part of a blog, to post. And then one of the key things that's important to start to get visibility and raise engagement on social media is to tag people that you think would be interested. So for example, David spoke at a managing partner conference, and he was allowed to, he connected with these people on LinkedIn, and then he would tag some of them, not the same people all the time, because he has hundreds and hundreds of connections. And sometimes it's in a post for in-house counsel, because he also works with legal departments to help them to work with their firms to sort of create a succession program, because clients don't want to lose their lawyer if they like him or her. And so that became really important. And then Alay, there's a problem with the links. They were asking if you could send them out maybe via email, because they couldn't capture them. Anyway, so that is our number 2 story. And we can now segue into our next story, which had to do with a law firm that was rooted in relationships. So this is a 40-year-old firm, and this was their old tagline. They had a website before this where they used tree roots to show rooted in relationship. And then the 2 named partners, Ferruzzo and Ferruzzo, retired, and Tim McElfish led the firm starting about 5 years ago with a group of other partners. And they realized that over time, they have changed the way they deliver service. This is another brand where service became a huge part of their brand. They increased their practice areas. They increased geographically by moving an office, opening up an office out of state. And during the brand development session, the unique selling points came up over and over again about how they educate their clients along the way. They look at their clients' big picture business and frequently bring other attorneys in, even if they came from one matter where another practice area might have been helpful. Like, for example, a business litigator, even if they were doing an M&A agreement, to be looking at potential problems to avoid litigation. That's not that unusual, where a firm will bring in another partner, but this is part of their process. And they pride themselves on their intake process, which is very succinct. You talk immediately to the partner. You don't have to talk to a paralegal or an associate, and they get onboarded quickly. And this ongoing education and communication with clients became huge. So this is an example of where we rolled out the brand stories. They picked one, and we eventually settled on this next slide, where you can see their new tagline. solving your challenges together. Notice the image where they connect. It's a connecting, but it's a little more digital, a little more contemporary, as opposed to the older stock image that they had before. And their brand essence statement. At Ferruzzo, we go beyond just relationships. We attract clients with novel issues, focusing our energies and legal expertise on innovative solutions while educating every client. Our collective consciousness focuses on the impact and the legal issues on business and individual businesses. So you can see that those unique selling points of helping, the expanding the client assistance with other practice areas or other business professionals that even aren't attorneys, but they're always educating and thinking. We had to give a nod, of course, to their brand before, rooted in relationships. And we tried to do that with this graphic image where we're connecting. And we almost kind of thought those lines in the hands looked a little bit like roots. And then we went to the next slide, please, where we have this nautilus shell, which you know how the shell starts small and winds and gets bigger and bigger. And this was to represent the expansion in their practice group areas. Bob thought of this image. I thought it was really creative. It's one of the reasons we've been working together for 14 years, because, you know, as a web developer and a brand specialist, we both understand branding and how important it is to be on every single page. Deeply rooted in relationships for over 40 years, we have evolved, giving the nod to the partners, to the history of the firm, but we've evolved, and this is how. So their practice areas, and then we view the depth of relationships built over the years as a cornerstone of our history, community legacy, and enduring success. And what's really interesting about this is their community involvement. They gave a small nod to it before, but we realized how big and important it was. It came up quite often during the brand development process. And what we found out was that not only did the firm volunteer time, donate money to causes, but that the partners, the assistants, the secretaries, paralegals, everyone in the firm seemed to have some community involvement. So we created a separate page to pay off this concept of how important our community legacy is, as well as our rooted in relationships. And we created the following page on the next slide. So we've always had a firm commitment to do more. So that double entendre of firm commitment, the law firm, and our firm commitment, solid firm. And this isn't exactly what the page looks like on the website, but it was the best way I could do some screen captures to show you. And you can see more at ferruzzo.com if you'd like to see more on how we branded the rest of the pages. And now this website, by the way, is not even launched yet. It's going to be in the next few weeks. You're getting a sneak preview, so you actually can't see the new one yet. And what I wonder if there are questions or issues that you're wondering about. Check out the chat. Let's see. Okay, one question is, for branding purposes, is it better to use one or work with an acronym of the partners, main partners? Oh, that's such a great question. So the answer is it depends. There is not one answer. It's become more trendy for law firms to name themselves, you know, as a business as opposed to with the partners' names. And of course, we've all seen that consolidation of having 3, 4, 5, 6 partner names as the name of the firm, down to sometimes 1 or 2. And so that's happening. So there's not one answer, but the real answer is, if you have equity in that name of the firm, you want to keep that name, right? We're not going to change the name Ferruzzo. Even though the name of the firm is Ferruzzo and Ferruzzo, they just call themselves Ferruzzo. And that's the website too. It's ferruzzo.com. The other question had to do with, I have to pull it up again. How have branding efforts impacted growth and profitability? So once the website is done, we use the concepts to work with them. I'm a business development consultant. So once we get the branding, the website, social media going, we turn to creating sustainable business development opportunities. Maybe we're creating a new group, or maybe we're doing a series of focus groups where we'll pull in some clients and show the new website or portions of it. How clearly does this website reflect who you think we are? And we go through a few pages and get some feedback. If necessary, we will refine the website or the brand messaging, but it is a way to pull in 10, 12 clients in a single focus group, for example, to review that. Or if you have a new offering, you can use that same process. If you're in the hospitality industry, perhaps we start a group with your clients and non-clients, and you get together quarterly. One of your partners talks briefly about a change in the law or something that they need to know about, and then we roundtable. Not like this where we can't see everyone, where everyone can see and talk and have a conversation. And using that, if you're doing e-blasts, making sure that everything is branded, you're consistent with your colors, your logo, and tagging people in your social media posts, and using your hashtags in social media posts. And then, of course, the new concept of how to get clients using social media by using AI to do the analysis for you, that we've just started using with our first two clients, because we've recognized and realized that Google has lost some of its shine because it's been so overused and because it keeps changing, as probably most of you know. The analytics on LinkedIn, on Google, on all social media, if you use Instagram, any of them, things constantly change. So it's a matter of really understanding and knowing about that. Let's see if I missed another question. How did the partners respond to the new brand, which incorporated, was the old guard okay with this? Well, the old guard had retired 5 years ago. And we worked with all of the equity partners. And the first time we came through, we only had less than all of the equity partners, and they weren't all that happy with it. They thought it needed a little bit of work. So we had one more session where we got together, looked at the unique selling points, and I created a few more taglines and wrote a new brand essence statement based on the conversation I got from all 6 of them. So it's not always a black and white, like, oh, isn't this fun? Let's rebrand the firm. It's work and it takes time. And as I said, sometimes in firms, not 100% of everyone is on board at the beginning, but they will get there over time. I remember years ago working with a very large firm that consolidated from 5 names to 1, and they changed their logo and their tagline. And there were some of the old guard whose names came off of that. You know what that was like, right? So it took some time. One partner went around the day before the rollout with the new stationery and business cards, and went around to all the offices and took as much stationery as he could so he would have it with his name on it for as long as possible. So yeah, that's how that works. And finally, if you are interested in getting in touch with either Bob or I, or you have questions, we are happy to help you. And I think that kind of takes us to the end of our time, Alay, and I really appreciate everyone's rapt attention. It was wonderful to have a chance to be here, and I'm here. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary. That was fantastic. Great job as always. And I can see why you are a Hall of Fame member of the LMA. Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Our next speaker here coming up. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, although he needs no introduction. Give me just a moment here. We are, by the way, about 30 minutes away from a break. So we actually have breaks built in here, and you are going to want to take one after this next speaker because he is supercharged. We have Steve Fretzin coming on board talking about sales-free selling, driven, focused, passionate about helping attorneys reach their potential. Steve Fretzin is regarded as the premier coach, skills trainer, and keynote speaker on business development for attorneys. Over the past 17 years, a bit longer now, Steve Fretzin has devoted his career to helping lawyers master the art of business development to achieve their business goals and the peace of mind that comes from developing a successful law firm and a successful book of business. In addition to writing 4 books on legal marketing and business development, Steve has a highly rated podcast, Be That Lawyer. He also has monthly columns in Above the Law and Legal Biz World magazine. Steve, welcome to the conference.
Hey, thanks, Alay, and I'm so happy everybody's here. I think you may need to give me the screen sharing capabilities. Um, Boy, how do I look as good as that picture? I don't think that can happen, but I have a good photographer in Chicago if anybody needs one. Holy mackerel. But I'm so happy to be here, and I want for all of you that are here that are taking your valuable part of the day to really walk out of this, not only my session, but all of these sessions with so many actionable takeaways that you can leverage to get ahead as a lawyer, to marketing, business development, you name it. We want you guys to get ahead. So hopefully I'm going to go through about an hour of material in about 30 minutes. If you have questions you want to give to Alay, he'll route them to me, or we can have them at the end or whatever we have to do there. But I just need to get co-hosting capability here.
Steve, you should be able to share.
Oh, well, there we go. All right. Then I can stop asking. All right, and let's just make sure this goes. And Alay, let me know we're good.
We're good.
All right. So as I mentioned, or Alay mentioned, I'm a 4-time author working on number 5 right now as we speak, which is crazy, but it's happening. I am the host of the Be That Lawyer podcast, which is 430 episodes, having a great time with that. Get to interview Alay and Mary and all these wonderful people that you're going to be seeing today. And the rest of the stuff you heard. I focus on only 2 things. I do business development coaching and training for ambitious individual lawyers. And I also facilitate currently 3, soon to be 4 roundtable groups. These are peer advisory groups so everybody can stay sharp and on top of their game. The question I have, and you guys can put this in the chat, is the taboo of sales in legal. What is it? And what I want you to put in the chat right now is, why do you hate sales? Want to see a list of answers? As crazy as you can think of, the better. But that's really what I want to get to is the reason I came up with my philosophy of sales-free selling, which we're going to talk in great detail about today, is because I never felt good selling services. I never felt good being sold services. And so, the idea that we could come up with a model that is a systematic methodology of how to do business development without ever feeling salesy, without ever feeling like you're trying to, jam a square peg in a round hole, that's what I want to work on. And I'm going to give you guys the reasoning behind it. And I'm going to give you actionable things that you can take away and start doing right away to be better at locking up more business. And a lot of the skills transfer to networking, a lot of the skills transfer to your personal lives. For example, asking better questions, okay? These are things that help with spousal relationships and teenager relationships, although, my teenager is a bit difficult. So, it takes a lot for him to answer a question like, how was school? Good. All right, that's the typical teenager answer. All right, so we got those in the chat. Let's move on. If you do not have a methodology, and again, they don't teach this in law school and they don't teach it at the law firm level, what are the consequences of winging it as a business developer? First of all, if there's a good chance that you're going to want to talk and you're going to want to provide free consulting and rates to people that ask you, tell me how to fix this, or what do you charge an hour? And giving away that information can sometimes turn them not into you, but away from you, and then you end up chasing after them. You lose control in the meeting to the buyer when they ask all the questions and you answer all the questions. I know it's counterintuitive to what you think might be the way to do it, but I'm suggesting that there's a different way and a better way, and you're going to hear all about it in the next couple minutes. The meeting can go in 100 different directions. Are they going to talk about their kids? Are they going to talk about dirty laundry? Are they going to talk about the matter? What's going to happen in this meeting? Who's controlling it if not you? They are, okay? And they could be all over the place. Also, the decision to work with you may be more transactional. It's more rate-based than it is relationship-based, and we need to get away from that. And of course, you may then waste time chasing after prospective clients who tell you things like, this sounds great, I'll think about it, I'll get back to you, I'll let you know. And I don't know if you guys know what that really means in America talk, but that's a no. It's a nice way of saying no. And the reason I know that is because that's what I say. And by the way, that's probably what you say. When you don't want to work with someone anymore that has invested time with you, you don't want to say no to them because that feels bad. And you don't want them coming back and trying to sell you after you've said no. So it's easier just to have them disappear and go away. So let's take it and break it down even further about what is sales free selling, why did I come up with this, and why should we use it? First thing is we need to look at the traditional model of selling and why it doesn't work anymore. All right. And so think about, putting on your lawyer sales hats, and we're going to use what's called the traditional selling model. It's been around for 100 years. Essentially, you get in front of a prospect, you make a pitch. I mean, it's right there. Every lawyer knows you go out and you make a pitch meeting. That's what they call it. We're going out to make a pitch. All right. After you make the pitch, there might be a trial close. What do you think? Do you want to get started? Do you have any questions? All right. They then have objections about the price or the rates that you have. It might be objections that they need to hold off or think about it. It might be that they need to run it up the ladder to their boss. Whatever it might be, you scramble to come up with some ways of handling those objections with the idea that if you do a good job, you're going to close that business. And that's what we have done in sales for 100 years. The big problem with that, and by the way, this worked great in like the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s, because there was no information. Basically, it was the selling the sizzle of the steak, if you know what that reference, okay? You smell this, you hear it, you smell it, you see it, you want that steak, as an example, okay? Unless you're a vegetarian, then it's broccoli. All right, there you go. There's a problem with this model, and the problem is you, and the problem is me, and the problem is that we as buyers have changed the way that we buy. We don't buy like we used to because there's too much information. So we now have a buyer model that the sellers that you're talking to, and when you're selling, so take off your seller hat, put on your buyer hat. You're all now buyers. You're buying a car, you're buying a home, you're buying insurance, okay? Think about the process you go to. And the easiest one to goof on, of course, is car dealers. You walk into a car dealer and you're just gonna walk in, and the first thing you're gonna say when they approach you is, just looking. Not only do I say just looking, I go like this. I put my hands up. I go, just looking, just looking. I don't think about it. That's just what I do because I'm protecting myself with this invisible wall that I'm putting up to keep the nasty salesman away from me. So what I'm actually doing is I'm lying and I'm stalling because what I really want at that car dealer or at the talking to 3 insurance people or whatever it is, and we all want this as buyers, it's information and price. This is our warm, cozy blanket that we all use to feel secure that we're not going to get screwed. That's what we do as buyers. But then we have 3 people in the mix, right? 3 insurance people, 3 financial planners, 3 car dealers, 3 lawyers, okay? So what do? We get information and price from all of them, and then we tell lie number 2. Lie number 2 is that we're interested in working with them, and can they please send us more information? And that sounds all great, and we'll get back to you. You're not getting back to 2 out of 3 of those people, right? So what are you going to do as a buyer when you don't want to say no? We call this the Houdini, and I'm very good at it, and so are you. It's called a disappearing act, okay? And we just go away into the ether, and they go away, and everybody's happy, or so we think. So look at how these 2 systems interact or don't interact well anymore. Prospect lies or stalls to get the presentation, they get your information and price, you go to trial close, they lie again, more objections, and eventually there's a disappearing act. So if you're trying to lock up new clients and you're struggling with that, or it's not happening at the level, or maybe you're saying, oh, I lock up everything I meet. Maybe you're not dealing with big enough clients, right? Maybe your rates are too low. There's a number of reasons. But in this model, you as the buyer and as you as the lawyer, the buyers, the GCs, the CEOs, they have all the control because they're in the buyer position, okay? So how do we fix this? Well, I'm going to tell you real quick. We're going to change both models to ensure win-win outcome. We're no longer going to do the traditional model, and we're no longer going to allow the buyer model. We're going to control the sale by walking a buyer through the buying decision. And this is going to be a win-win outcome. So don't think for a minute you're walking away a winner and they're a loser, or they're a loser, you're a winner. That's the old model. The new model is everyone wins every time, okay? You either get the business for the right reasons or you walk away from the business and you get your time back, and that's a win, all right? So let's break down this model. I've got some clients in the room as well. Feel free to put in the chat things that you've learned from working with me and from the program if you would, and let's go through this model in an abbreviated fashion. I spend up to 6 months working on this and other highly tactical, actionable things with my clients in my program that I run in this class that many of them are a part of. but let's go through it step by step. You walk into a meeting and they say, great, here's my problem, solve it. We're not going to do that. Remember, we're getting rid of that model. What we're going to do is we're going to build relationship. The reason I have the skyscraper is we're going to work from the bottom up. Nobody builds a skyscraper starting at the 50th floor, right? We're going to start and put in the piers in the ground, and we're going to start from the bottom up. We're going to bring up something that we found out about them in our research. That was the person that connected you. That was doing a web search, looking at their website, whatever it is. Do your homework, be prepared, and get them talking about their favorite subject, which is themselves. We want to build trust. We want to build likability. We want to find things in common. We want to be like them. There might even be some morphing you have to do to be a better communicator. If I'm an extrovert and I'm dealing with an introvert, I may have to slow it down. I'm not going to do that now because I've got 30 minutes to knock this thing out instead of an hour. So here we go. So what does that all mean? What we need to do is we need to build a trust. And if we don't, it's going to hijack the rest of the meeting. We just launch into business. They don't know us, like us, or trust us. And we launch into answering their questions. The worst thing that can happen. We have to slow it down and take a few minutes to build some relationship. And when you don't, it can end up badly for everybody. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to establish a game plan. And if you've heard this before, I hope you're using it, because there's no better way to run a meeting than having a game plan and getting permission by the buyer to do it. So I've got a bunch of steps. I'm going to rattle through it. Alea, I might ask you to role play with me for a minute, but essentially we're going to set that game plan. We're going to agree on how much time we're meeting for. We're going to make sure that this is all about a fit. We're going to gain permission to ask questions, and we're going to move things forward, or we're going to end them as friends. So Alea, are you with me?
I'm with you.
All right. So we have just spent 10 minutes talking about businesses and how much fun it is to run a business, and you're a serial entrepreneur and all this great stuff. And then I would say the following. I'd say, Alea, we could probably talk about how cool running businesses are. But listen, I know how valuable your time is, mine as well. Just to make the best use of our time, would it be okay just to set up a quick game plan for us?
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Okay. Yeah, great. I know we had agreed on an hour. We've got about 50 minutes left. And really, from my perspective, it was just to see if there's a fit, see if we might want to work together. Is that sort of how you see it as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, awesome. And what I'd love to do is spend some time really learning about you and your business via questions. And I do tend to ask some tough questions. Is that going to be all right as well? I won't overstep any boundaries, though.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And then was there anything specific you wanted to get out of today that you want me to cover?
I'd like to learn about, your services and how everything works.
Absolutely. And I can promise you we're going to get to that probably closer to the end of the meeting. But to that point, by the way, when we get to there, one of a couple things will probably happen. Either we'll figure out this is a great fit and we want to keep moving this forward to see if we can work together. Or if you or I don't feel that it's a good fit, we can both just be honest with each other, call it a day. I'll still be a good resource for you. We could stay friends. But are you okay with that, just being transparent about where we go?
Sure.
Awesome. And scene. Okay. So everybody, if that sounded salesy to you, if that sounded of course I went through it quickly, but the idea is it actually does the opposite, because what I'm doing by giving him permission to say no is I'm releasing the sales valve out of the meeting. We're taking sales off the table. He's either in or he's out. Both are okay. I'm fine with either. And that type of chill type of reality helps him to agree to the agenda that's going to make it all about him, not all about me. Okay. So I want you guys to just think about this. It works. It's been working for 20 years. And if it's uncomfortable, it's because you haven't really had a chance to utilize it. But what it does, it allows us to control the meeting for the rest of the time that we're doing this, which is critical, because where we're going in the next step is all about discovery. So think about an iceberg for a moment. What do we know about icebergs, right? Most of you are iceberg experts. We know from the Titanic and other things that most of the ice is below the surface. It's the same thing with a new prospective client. What they're going to tell you openly about their problems and their needs for your services, it's all at the surface. And if you get them, good for you. If you get them and then start solving and selling and giving rates and everything, well, then I would say shame on you, because there's all that ice underneath the water that you haven't even gone and try to get yet. So we can start with some background questions. Tell me a little bit more about your business. I see you're in a sign franchise business. Okay, that's cool. Tell me what's been going on. We get to the surface pain. What are your main challenges, frustrations, concerns? What are the things that are keeping you up at night? And that's where we want to get. Some people would think that's the whole meeting, right? Just hear what their problems are and then start solving. I say nay, don't do that, because now we're at the surface of the water. This is where lawyers don't like to go, and they rarely go there. And if you do, good for you, all right? We want to now go to causation. So if I'm talking to a lawyer and the lawyer isn't getting in front of enough prospective clients to hit the kinds of numbers the lawyer wants to get to, I would say that sounds difficult. Can you tell me more about that? What's been going on? Then I zip my lip and I let the lawyer talk, let the buyer talk, okay? And then we get into, what are the reasons this is happening? Why do you believe this is happening? Well, I don't have a plan, or I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just winging it, and I'm not having good conversations, and I'm spending all this time networking, not getting anything out of it. No one's getting me in front of quality decision makers, okay? You want to get in front of 5 decision makers a month. Currently, you're getting in front of 1 or 2. So I wonder what the average cost a month is of you not getting in front of more people, right? If every new client you bring in is worth $20,000 and you want to get 3 deals a month, and right now you're getting 1, right? So that's $60,000 a month that you're not getting because you're not bringing in those clients, getting those meetings and locking them up. $60,000 a month over a year, we start doing the math on that and we start nodding going, wow, I see. There's a cost and an impact. What's the impact? The impact is you're not getting the car you want. You're not taking the Disney vacation. You're not socking a ton of money away for your kids' 529s, and you got 3 of them, okay? So there's a cost and an impact that we can find by digging down deeper and really going to the bottom of that iceberg. Ultimately, what I'm looking for are compelling reasons to change. If I'm talking to a lawyer who has no compelling reason to take action to grow a book of business, and you're all here to learn and to do that, but if you don't have a compelling reason to change, why am I going to keep going forward? What's my motivation to want to spend more time with you if you have a bunch of problems you want to solve, but you're not willing to put in the investment to do it? So that's where I might cut off the meeting and say, you're a lovely person. Let me, refer you somewhere else. Okay. So background questions leading to surface pain. What we're really shooting for is to identify pain, fear, and gain. That's where the business is, the motivation to change. If that motivation to change, and think about it in estate planning, think about it in divorce, litigation, whatever area you're in, you need to have motivation to change in your buyer to get them to leave the firm they're with. It's a big deal to change financial planners or insurance agents or lawyers. There's got to be a motivation. If you're not digging down to find it, it's probably transactional, and it's probably not going to happen at the rate or the level that you'd like. Okay? I'm going to probably answer questions at the end is my guess. All right, and we're cooking along here. So it's the difference between a needs analysis and a deep dive discovery. One of them is going to get you much further along, not only in the meeting, but from a standpoint of relationship. Think about this. If I'm a therapist and you're coming to see me as a therapist, and you tell me that you have a problem, I immediately start solving it and selling you and telling you about how great I am and how great my degrees are and all that. Would you rather spend an hour that way, or would you rather spend an hour with me listening and asking you deeper questions and eventually pull out a Kleenex box and start crying, and you never told anybody these secrets before, but you're telling me? What's the likelihood that at the end of the meeting you're going to say, Steve, I feel so much better. Next week I'm going to go meet with another therapist? It's probably pretty slim. So we're building a tremendous amount of trust and relationship using this model versus the model where we just sell, pitch, and convince. Okay? So once we get compelling reasons to change, we're not done yet. There's a few other qualifiers I want to walk you through that are really important. You've got the compelling reasons to change, but are you committed to making a move, to making a decision? So I would ask 2 questions. In your opinion, based on everything you shared with me, is this a could, a should, or really a must-fix situation? And if the answer isn't a must-fix, either I did a lousy job asking questions, or you're maybe hiding a little secret, like you don't have the money, or you're not the real decision maker, or whatever it might be. And put yourself in the mindset of thinking about the last number of people you met with that said, maybe think about it, I'll get back to you. There are secrets that are there that they're not telling you, okay? And our job is to get to the honesty and to get to the truth in a meeting. That's why we set that agenda of a number of reasons. And is this something you'd like my help to fix? If the answer is yes to both of those, I'm going to continue and I'm going to ask a few questions about the decision maker. Because right now, I believe you as the lawyer are the decision maker. You believe the person that is the CEO of the company you're meeting with is the decision maker. Is that really true though? Let's find out. Let's ask a few questions that aren't going to hurt the relationship. But again, it's all about transparency. So other than yourself, Joan, who else, if anyone, would be involved in a decision to change law firms? And Joan says, it's just me. I'm the CEO. Do I believe Joan? Let's find out. Here's another question. That's great, Joan. Would you mind just taking me through the process you're going to go through to make this happen? Well, yeah, I just need to take your proposal. I need to bring it to my CFO, run it by the board, talk to my dog, whatever it is, okay? We realized that in her mind, she's the decision maker, but when we asked about the process, that's when we understand she's one of the decision makers, not the only decision maker, okay? So it's these extra questions that are protecting our time and are protecting this opportunity from going bye-bye. Because if I give her the proposal and she runs it to the board, to the CFO, and they're just going to shoot it down on price alone, this is over. And she's never going to get back to me. All right? So this is why we need to, in the meeting, have these questions put out front. And we've got one more big one. Some of the lawyers won't need to do this as much as others, but it's really about understanding in discovery. Did they tell you, for example, they're with a mid-market firm, they're paying $500 an hour. If you know they're paying $500 an hour or what they've been paying a year, that's very helpful. Because if I'm charging $300 an hour or I'm charging $800 an hour and they've been paying $500, that might be problematic. Because if you're too low, you're a moron, and if you're too high, you're too big for them, potentially, right? So we really want to get as much information in the discovery about the money situation as we can. And are they willing and able to invest to move forward? What's their budget? And what happens if you come in too high or too low, like I just said? So these are you don't have to ask all these questions, but it's about getting, and you might already know this just naturally through the course of the meeting, you may be able to just skip this step. As long as you know that they're willing and able to make a change and invest, you're fine. But it's when you don't know that they're going to pay you a flat fee at $20,000 and they've got $50,000 in credit card debt. Wouldn't it be good to find that out and know that in the middle of the meeting versus when they don't return your calls because they're broke? Okay. So the question I have for you guys, and you can give them a range if you're not really sure where they are, but the question I have for you is, would you rather present solutions and rates to someone who you don't know that they've got compelling reasons to change, you don't know if they're committed, you don't know if they're the decision maker, and you don't know if they have the financial wherewithal, or would you rather present solutions and ideas and rates to someone who's basically ready to go and is completely qualified? We're qualifying them as much as they're qualifying us. Okay, that leads us to our last step, which is presentation. Notice that I'm not doing any presenting, I mean, if I can help it, until the end. I mean, if somebody wants to hear my infomercial or I have to use a third party story to explain something, that's fine. But I'm not going to answer questions about rate. I'm not going to answer questions about solutions or anything free consulting until basically I know they're committed to do something. And I also want to know what they need to see, hear, experience to say yes. And again, these are all done in a very nurturing way, not in a salesy way. But we are going to eventually sell to their pain. If their pains are XYZ, that's what I'm going to talk about solving, not everything, right? We want to keep it really tight. Only cover the areas that were brought up in discovery. Don't oversell. What does the prospect need to see, hear, experience? For example, I run everybody through an audit of my class. I run them through talking to some of my clients all before we even have a conversation about what the fees are, what we're going to do together. So they know what the ROI is. They know the quality of the group that I run and what they're getting for the value first. Then we can talk about, are they willing to invest, whatever that is at the end, okay? But I only want to bring up what they care about, not what they don't care about. Establish a specific next step to ensure you don't lose them. So again, if there is a next step, set it up in the calendar. Get a date and time. Don't leave things hanging if you can help it. All right? So time management is key. You don't have to sell to anyone who's not qualified. You can walk away. Presenting too early is the number one reason for losing new opportunities. Here's a great, great mantra. Prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. Just think about that. Go to a doctor, my arm hurts. Oh, we'll cut your arm off. Well, that's not a great idea. Maybe you want to ask a few questions. And then never move forward with someone until you've completed the step before. So, wrapping up, stop selling and pitching. Let's learn sales-free selling. Read a book, come to class. I got a free audit for you if you want to come to class. Don't fall into the buyer trap and stop winging it. Use a proven process. That's the key. For free books, you can email me at steve@fretzin.com. And of course, if we have a few minutes, I'm happy to answer questions. That was as fast as I could go, but hopefully that was well worth it, because what we're talking about here is locking up a very high level of business using a methodology that's been proven. Alay.
Yeah, what questions do you have for Steve Fretzin? Put it in
Almost
the
out
chat
of words.
or use the Q&A.
Whatever you want to do.
I got to tell you, Steve, I've seen a lot of presentations on, kind of new ways of selling and different ways of selling, and this was one of the best. You compressed the entire process. It was clear, it was concise, it was done in 30 minutes. And absolutely love that. For those of you that have talked to myself or talked to Steve, we both believe that having a book of business is an incredibly empowering thing as an attorney, right, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, it is the single most important thing for control and freedom. Whether you're solo, whether you're at a firm, there's no other better way to go.
And
So,
Steve, we're getting requests for sharing the recording. How do you feel about that?
yeah, happy to share the recording. Happy to share the deck if you want to share the deck, or I can share it. But yeah, I mean, anything I can do to help you guys. I'm in this for the long haul for the industry, and if I pick up some clients along the way, that's okay.
Question coming through here. Will you please explain more about framing the meeting and releasing the sales valve in terms of who owns the room, who is in power, or I guess who is in control?
The prospective client or the buyer is going to feel like he or she is in control because they're the ones doing all the talking. We need to establish that game plan and get permission to ask questions and tough questions, because that's where we want to spend most of the time in the meeting. Where it can be challenging is when you have multiple people in a meeting. If you've got a room full of people, this is very hard to do. I always try to keep it to who I believe is the decision maker and make it a one-on-one if you can. If it's two people, I would do more research, try to find out what their relationship is. Are they friends? Are they enemies? Whose fault is it? Whatever it might be. But ultimately, the best scenario is for if you deal with GCs, if you deal with COs, don't let anyone else in the room. You want someone basically crying in your arms about their problems, and they're not going to do that in a room full of underlings or people that might actually be the problem.
Next question. This is probably the last one for you, Steve, for this talk. And it's really more of a statement. So then, do you think it's possible to close an engagement with a client who is driven by cost or expediency? They don't want the whole relationship building thing.
Yeah. You don't need to build a big relationship, but I think people have a need to be understood. People have a need to be listened to. And when you're asking questions and listening and repeating back and finding pain, we take a transactional situation and we move it to relationship. And here's a secret tip. When you ask the best questions and you're competing against other lawyers that don't, they're going to believe that you are the expert more than anyone else, and your rates are going to go up. I have lawyers charging far beyond what they were before they worked with me because of the way that they're running these meetings and how they're being perceived in the market, being perceived by the prospective clients. So it's like belief is stronger than reality, and in this system, it absolutely is true. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Steve. Great to see you in action. Always
Thanks,
lots
everybody.
of great information.
Awesome, my pleasure. Thanks, and let's keep it going for the rest of the team today.
Yeah, appreciate it. Folks, that was a great 1-2 punch between Mary to kick us off, going through a couple quick case studies on branding, and then Steve showing us how it's done with the new model of business development, sales-free selling. All right, as you're all getting back, let me go ahead and just share my screen real quick. We have a real treat for you coming up next. You're going to hear from a couple of fantastic speakers. Roman Zelichenko is going to talk about LinkedIn, and Saja Raoof, an attorney, is going to talk about networking. Quick introduction, a little bit about Roman, although he really doesn't need much of an introduction. After practicing immigration law for a couple years, Roman left actually working as a lawyer, got a job in tech, and eventually launched an immigration tech startup called Laborless, which is still running today. To raise awareness for Laborless, Roman leveraged a decade of improv theater and writing experience to spread the word on LinkedIn, which led to launching a second venture. Roman now works with lawyers and other founders in the immigration law space, helping them grow their personal brands on LinkedIn and thus grow their business as a result. I've learned a ton from him. Roman, welcome to the Law Firm Growth Conference.
Thank you so much for having me, Lay. I'm excited to be here. And hi, everybody. So we have a lot to go through today. We have about 30 minutes, so I will be talking quite a bit. However, I I would love to get questions throughout. So please, if anybody has questions while you go, I will try to answer a few of them as we go. There might be more questions than what I have time to answer. So I actually realized that I'm looking at my presentation. I didn't put my email address in at the end of the presentation, but hopefully, Alay, will you be sharing our presentations with folks and or our contact information?
Yes, they're going to get all of that.
Great. So I can also, you know what, I'll send you an updated presentation and that'll have my email address on it. So let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it. It says work with me.
Nope. There you go. I was checking
There
the
we
last
go.
slide to see if I had my email. Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And again, please, I think in the chat, right? I think we're using the chat function and not the Q&A function. So I definitely, right, LA?
We're using both.
Both. Okay, cool. So whatever folks want to do, I will be sort of monitoring both of them. So as LA said, I am Roman Zelichenko, former immigration lawyer turned entrepreneur, and now run a couple businesses. Really, I leverage LinkedIn to grow both my businesses. So as LA said, started a software business that is geared towards immigration lawyers, and to raise awareness, started using LinkedIn and posting articles and other sorts of content, and started networking with people and connecting with folks, and it worked. I went from being a nobody to being a somebody, and then eventually to being somebody that was not only getting clients but being invited to speak at conferences, and contributing to articles and webinars and things like that. It was just such a wonderful experience. So I wanted to share with you. I started sharing tips actually along the way because it was such a transformative experience for me. This platform that I could really leverage while sitting at home and typing away on LinkedIn and chatting with people while I do other stuff. It helped me get in front of so many of my peers and colleagues and eventually clients. So I started sharing tips along the way. And what I want to do is condense like the most basic and high level information that I can for you today. If you follow the tips that I talk about today at a very foundational level, you will level up your LinkedIn game. If you don't use it at all, excellent. Even if you do use it today, I think you'll find at least some things that will help you level up your LinkedIn game. Why did I share this picture? It's a little bit of a kind of foreshadowing for the theme of the presentation, sort of. But if you notice, I have a bird sitting on top of my head, and I used this picture a couple of times on LinkedIn, and the point was, using it to gain some eyeballs and to catch some people's attention. And that's really what we're trying to do on LinkedIn. So let's get started. Very basic context. In 2024 and beyond, why is marketing your law firm on LinkedIn important? So three main reasons. So the first reason is, oh, well, I have a comment here already. Christian says, want to let the audience know how much I learned about LinkedIn from your posts and interacting with you. That's super nice. Thank you, Christian. I appreciate that. So in 2024, why is it important to be on LinkedIn? So first of all, this is a current stat, 1 billion users. It's probably a little bit more, but for sake of clarity, LinkedIn officially says 1 billion users in over 200 countries and territories on LinkedIn, right? So everyone talks about TikTok having 1 billion users, Facebook, Instagram, et cetera. So does LinkedIn. And folks don't often think about it that way. They think about it as a resume, digital resume, or a place where you go to only when you're looking for work. Not true. It is a social media platform. A lot of my co-presenters use it actively, and they share tips about it as well. It's a wonderful place. So there are 1 billion+ people. That means your clients are on here. Now more than ever, I believe you can build real trust and real relationships through LinkedIn and online in general, but specifically through LinkedIn. And if you have a really clean profile, if it's built out, if you create valuable content, and you really are kind of true to communicating with folks, you genuinely can build relationships the way that you would in real life. And LinkedIn is an amazing way to keep in touch with clients and prospects, frankly. Some people have regular email sort of blasts that they send, or other things that go directly to folks. What I really like about LinkedIn is that it's a little bit passive. I mean, yes, there is an algorithm that maybe does not guarantee that you're going to get in front of the clients, the same folks every time, although there is a little bell icon which folks can press to always get your, notifications of your content. But when you're passively keeping up with folks, it's sort of, it's kind of a gentle way of saying, hey, I'm still here. I'm still posting and talking about these things. I'm still an expert. And, if you need my help or have any questions, let me know. And it's a really wonderful way to keep in touch with folks. So really important in 2024. So we're going to talk about several things. Let's see. Next slide. We're going to break it. I break LinkedIn down into 3 main aspects. And these are by order of importance, by the way. So the absolute first thing, if you're going to work on anything or double check something about your existing LinkedIn profile, it's in box number 1. So your photo, which is obviously your picture, your banner, which is that sort of rectangular image above your picture, your name seems straightforward, but I'll get to it in a second, and your kind of quote unquote headline, which is that kind of sentence underneath your name. So super basic tips, your photo. A lot of people use whatever photo they can find. If you can, especially now, we all have really great cameras in our phones, right? Take a photo of yourself, make sure you're smiling, make sure you're looking at the camera, make your picture inviting and presentable. I'm not a huge fan of super corporate pictures. Obviously, the folks in the audience may be different types of attorneys that work with different types of clients, but honestly, even corporate clients, financial clients, et cetera, they don't necessarily want to see that sort of really buttoned up picture anymore, or they're more open to more casual photos. So highly recommend checking out and making sure that your photo is the kind of photo that makes people feel that they can work with you and trust you and want to like you. The banner above your picture, some people ignore it. And so LinkedIn gives you this sort of default blue and gray image. It is really the only place other than your picture where you can have an image that exists on your profile to give your profile a little bit of character. And so make your banner something that speaks to your audience. Now, there are different philosophies. You can use it as an advertisement that says, I practice immigration law, or specifically immigration law for corporates, for startups. If you do family law, corporate law, whatever it is, you can use that space as a billboard, if you will. But you can also use it for other things. I run a software business, so I actually use the banner to have a screenshot of my software, and that subconsciously tells people, here's what the tool looks like. If you're coming here to learn about immigration compliance software, this is the place to be, et cetera. You can also put a picture of where you're based or something like that if you want to be a regional attorney. Let's say you're based in San Francisco and you handle matrimonial law in San Francisco. Maybe you have a picture that sort of represents that, et cetera. My theory, philosophy under name and headline is this. Your name obviously should be your first and last name. I like to I don't practice anymore, so I put comma JD. I recommend for attorneys, especially if you're practicing, to put your first name, last name, comma, Esquire, right? Or JD, whatever you'd like. The reason for that is that typically what people do is they put their first name, last name, and underneath on their headline, they would say, managing partner at law firm of Roman Zelichenko, or lawyer at, or something like that. But what you really should be doing, or should consider doing, is by putting Esquire JD in your name, that already tells people you're a lawyer. And so then instead of that, you use the headline to explain very succinctly and directly what you do and for whom. So instead of Roman Zelichenko and underneath saying lawyer at Roman Zelichenko LLP or something, I could say Roman Zelichenko, comma, Esquire. And if I'm an immigration lawyer, underneath it on my headline, I could say immigration lawyer for tech startups in New York City, Boston, and Miami, for example. Super specific, what I do and for whom. And if you have those things, those 4 things are at the very top of your LinkedIn profile. Somebody gets into your LinkedIn profile, boom, it's clean, it's direct, it's concise, and it automatically builds trust and expertise. So second in line, your about section. This is sort of your biography, or really it should be your autobiography because it's your personal LinkedIn profile. A lot of people don't have anything, so if you don't have anything, consider putting something there. Other folks, especially attorneys that maybe work at a law firm, perhaps more of a corporate setting, might have sort of copy paste from something on your from your firm's website, especially in the third person. My recommendation, my thought is make your about section something that you would tell someone at a conference or a social event after the conference or during the conference. If they say, "Oh, so what do you do? Tell me about yourself," then first of all, you would definitely speak in the first person. I would be, it'd be funny if you spoke about yourself in the third person. Maybe you do, no judgment. But first person for sure. And then you wouldn't, talk about magna cum laude this and the fact that you're in chambers for top lawyers. You wouldn't say that to somebody if you're speaking to them live, at a bar or at a conference. You would just say, "Here's what I do, and maybe here's how I got into it. Maybe here's how long I've been doing it, etc." Make My recommendation, make your about section that kind of introduction. It makes it easier to read, which means folks will go through it. And if you really give people an understanding of who you are and especially why you do what you do, it gives them a better understanding of whether they should connect with you or perhaps even work with you. So it's a really great, I've actually had people message me and connect with me on LinkedIn and message me and say, "Hey, I read your about section. I thought it was really interesting. Can I ask you a question about X? Something about my about section." And that to me was such a great sign that what I put together was readable and kind of landed with them. Experience section, obviously, it shows where you've worked and what you've done. If you run your own practice or work at a law firm, just make sure that your experience section lists where you work. Again, I would get rid of like in bullet points that say increase client count by 50%, worked with, corporate documents, et cetera, et cetera. Don't make it sound like a resume. My recommendation, write in human language what you do, maybe some accomplishments you've had, maybe a notable client experience you've had, et cetera. Make it so that, again, if someone's on your profile reading your about section, your experience section, they will have an understanding of what you do and perhaps some specifics about it. So for me, these first 2 things, if you have this, you're basically good. There's so much more to LinkedIn profiles. Languages you speak, you can get recommendations from people, publications, there's so much more, but my belief is that if you get 1 and 2, your profile is, minimally complete to the extent that if someone goes on it, they'll say, "Wow, this is somebody who pays attention to their profile." Quick Q&A here. What do you think of using the pronoun space for title or USP? Not judging, just seeing people do that. I think it's fine. I mean, I guess I don't have a specific opinion on that. Thank you for the question, Craig. My view is use LinkedIn, use all the real estate you can, to the extent that you can. If you can put that kind of information in the space where there are pronouns, great, try it out. Worst case scenario, this is the other thing I always say, your LinkedIn profile is under your control and it's dynamic. Try it out. Maybe it's too small. Like if you actually notice the pronoun space is quite small. And so maybe it's going to be too small for what you want. And so you're not going to like how it looks. Then you could delete it and put it somewhere else. Experiment. There's nothing wrong with experimenting. My profile changes very slightly all the time because I'm always playing around with it to see kind of what looks better or worse, what's good, etc. Okay, super briefly, I'm just going to list these out. There's more types of content, but the main types of content you can share in order, from my perspective of importance. Number 1, you could share images, right? I'm not saying this is Instagram where you're going to share what you had for lunch and 10 pictures, but as you're scrolling through your LinkedIn feed, images tend to catch your attention. And so I've noticed over the many years I've been doing this, and I'm sure the folks, other presenters here as well, would say that if you have an image, whether it's a picture or a video or a presentation, a document like you see below on number 5, it's going to get people to stop scrolling. And then, of course, they look at the actual text behind your post. I'm not saying this is always the case, but I am saying that there's a higher likelihood that content does better, more impressions and more engagement from folks if you use something that's visual. I like to do images. I have found that images perform better than videos on LinkedIn. That being said, images are static. videos, while they may not get as much reach on LinkedIn, meaning it's not going to be seen most likely by as many people, the people that do watch your videos, they don't just see how you look, they hear your voice, they see your body language, they kind of, it's a little bit more intimate, they get to know you better. And so that actually builds, I believe, a stronger reputation, but with a smaller group of people. So you can switch between the two, right? Or if you're just the kind of person who loves being in front of a camera and doing videos, great, lean into the thing that that you like and that's comfortable for you. And I'll get to that in a moment. But those are the two things that are best in my view. Text only, a lot of folks do this and they're quite successful. You can do LinkedIn posts obviously without any imagery, just text. There you really have to make sure that the beginning of your post is very captivating, so that somebody who is scrolling by, they see it and they immediately want to stop and read what you have to write. Obviously, some people use emojis for that. Other people use language that's a little, that's sort of captivating, a hook, if you will, but something to consider. 4, 5, and 6 are a little bit less sort of popular, but they're, they have their own pluses and minuses. You can publish articles on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has its own kind of almost like a Word document or Google Doc tool, and you could publish articles on LinkedIn. Those used to do really well. I used to publish articles on LinkedIn. Personally, I stopped doing it, but some people still do it. I publish stuff on my blog and link it to the blog. But LinkedIn also has a newsletter feature now, and it's quite popular. I know a number of people. I haven't made one yet, to be honest with you, but I know a ton of people in my industry, in the immigration law industry, who've created a LinkedIn newsletter. I subscribe to it, I follow it, and they have reported to get a ton of subscribers, relatively speaking, in a short period of time. It goes to your notifications when you send out a new newsletter, and it often goes to the person's inbox too, the email address that's tied to their LinkedIn profile. So it's not like an email newsletter where you own their email address, if you will. So you are still beholden to what LinkedIn does, but LinkedIn has been pushing newsletters quite a bit. So I've really liked it. You can share a document. This is great. If you have a PDF that has, top 5 things you need to know for a marriage-based green card, or, if you're going through an uncontested divorce, here are some things you should consider. If you like to give out that document at, free events or to your prospective clients or whatnot, and has your branding on there and your contact information, you can upload that document onto LinkedIn and have people download it as a PDF. Number one, they'll have it available to them. Number two, it's got your branding, and effectively it's a business card. So you can upload that as well. And then finally, you can create live, you can have events. I didn't use audio only. If any of you remember Clubhouse, that app that blew up during COVID, but you can also do that on LinkedIn, an audio only event. But more importantly, you can have live events. So put something together at a local, I don't know, local bar association, maybe a lunch and learn, or breakfast thing at your firm, et cetera. You can create an event page on LinkedIn event and invite people to it. And then you can also stream on LinkedIn. That's what I do. I try to stream about every week. I have an interview show where I interview immigration technology CEOs and founders. I love doing it. And it's an easy way for me to effectively create videos, right? What's not in number 2, but do it live with an interactive format where folks on LinkedIn can see it and comment, et cetera. Quick question here. No, it's LA. Telling me I have 15 minutes. Great. A few ways to level up the quality of your content. And when I say quality, I kind of mean not just what you're writing, but also how it performs. So make sure, approximately 100 to 150 characters hook in the reader. This is because really long texts on LinkedIn collapse. And if you ever notice, it says see more. And so you want to get people interested in what you have to say before that see more button. And so the first 100, 150 characters should be really important. Add white space in your text. What that means is literally break up the text with some empty spaces. Otherwise, it's a long block of text, hard to read. As I said before, add a visual because it really helps stop people from scrolling and catches their attention. In your text, in your content, add a call to action. And this doesn't always have to be reach out to my firm or leave a question below or a comment below. Yes, those may be good if you genuinely are posting something that requires, or where it makes sense to have that kind of call to action. I also think other passive calls to action are really good. So for example, sometimes I share content that isn't tips about LinkedIn or immigration technology, but maybe it's a personal anecdote about how I had a really wonderful experience with a colleague that made me feel really appreciated as an immigration professional, whatever. And so maybe my call to action is, whenever next person you talk to today, say something nice to them, right? Like not a call to action that relates to me, just a general call to action to the person who's reading. Think about more creative calls to action. It makes your content engaging, and it allows you to not have to write, contact me every time, which then starts to feel like a sales pitch every time. So definitely try that. And then finally, be creative and personal in order to be memorable. I mean, genuinely, even if you're writing, again, I'm going to go back to 5 tips about green cards, for your client. You can just make it sound like a textbook, or you can say, make it personal and say, I just had a client that finally got their green card after waiting for 20 years, and it's changed their life. Here are 5 most important things that I told them along the way. And you could sort of mention those 5 things, and maybe even in the description of those 5 things, tie it to that client's case. I'm not saying you have to name the client or give any specifics, but you can share it in a more kind of personalized manner, and that content will be more memorable and therefore kind of more effective. You do these things. You don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do them all the time, but think about them. When you're writing your next piece of content, this is easy to do, right? So think about adding these things and then watch how your content does, when you implement some of these things versus maybe previously. Okay, you create great content. That's not enough, right? You want views, and I'm not saying views for the sake of views because it's not about the numbers necessarily. You want to create engagement. You actually want to build your network, build your reputation. And so, and also the more people you reach, the more you help them with your content. And obviously, of course, the more potential business you get. So encouraging engagement, there are a few ways of doing it. These are the 5 ways that I do it. I still do it this way, and I recommend this to all my clients that I work with around marketing. Reply to like and reply to every comment. All right. This sounds silly, but I've seen so many people get, a ton of comments and they just like every single one of them. And that seems like enough. But my recommendation is always reply to them as well. And by the way, if you said something like, oh, I'm so excited, I just got promoted to senior associate or partner, or we just opened up a new office or something where people only say congratulations. This is my philosophy. I'm not saying you have to do this, but not only do I like and reply to every comment, I wouldn't copy paste and say thanks, 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 because people subconsciously, they feel that reply is canned, it's automated, it's not for them. So what do? I might still say thanks to every single comment, but I'll say it slightly differently. So the first person I'll say, Joe, thank you. The second one I'll say, thanks so much. And the third one I'll say, thank you, I really appreciate it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if people see that and in their minds, they do feel and they believe that you're really responding to them genuinely. And by the way, you are, right? Because you are taking the time, the 5 extra seconds to write something. So always like and reply to comments, and preferably as quickly as you can. Post at a reasonable time, i.e. when your clients are, in my view, awake. If you're an immigration lawyer in the US, but maybe your target clients are in Europe, right? You help European entrepreneurs move to the US on a visa. Post at a time when it's morning to afternoon for them, right? Don't post at a time where it's afternoon for you and they're already going to bed. So think about that. If you have I did this in the very beginning. I still do this sometimes. If somebody who is a first connection of yours likes and comments on your post, send them a DM. Doesn't take very long, but you might send them a DM and say, hey, LA, thank you so much for liking my comment or liking my post earlier today. I really appreciate it. It's just a small little thing that makes them feel really great about the fact that they're engaging. So here, Christian says, say what you appreciate about the person or that they got a new job or promoted. So happy for you. Yeah, exactly. So if somebody's leaving a comment and or rather, I guess this would be if you're commenting on someone else's post, don't just say congratulations, say something that is really kind of specific to the content they're creating. Okay, so people are liking your post, they're commenting on your post. Your first degree connections, they're liking, commenting, you reach out to them in the DMs and you thank them. It's really nice. Sometimes it sparks a conversation. Maybe it's someone you haven't talked to in a while, etc. But then you're going to have second and third degree connections, right? If your content does well and it reaches a lot of people, you're going to have second and third degree connections who also like and comment on your post. What do? You go through that list and find people who you think will be beneficial to you or relevant to you or interesting to you, and you reach out to them. And when you reach out to them, you send them a note. Don't just hit the connect button, click on add a note and write, hey, thank you so much for liking my post. I'd love to connect with you if you're open to it. I always end with if you're open to it. I think it's a subtle way of giving them the opportunity to decline. And when you do that, it feels less forced. And in my view, they're more likely to connect. And then finally, people, there's this thing called engagement pods where you're in a group of people and everyone shares their content. The social media platforms do not like this. But I think engagement pods are kind of lifeless, and it's kind of what they say, likes for likes. You like my post, I like your post. I don't like that. I believe though, if you're in a group of lawyers and you're all sharing great quality content on LinkedIn, let's say there's 5, 10, 15 of you, share whenever, this is what I do with a close group of people, I'll share my content with them and they will go in and like it and comment on it. And they'll comment something substantive. And so it's a really nice way of almost guaranteeing some engagement on your content. And then also, frankly, keeping up with what other people are posting and sharing with them. Yeah. I know I'm talking a lot. Please, folks, find me on LinkedIn, etc. I'd love to answer questions about this. I don't have time to go into a ton of here, but I love this stuff. Sustainable content creation strategies. People get burnt out. Sometimes I get burnt out, even though I post basically daily. For me, these are some ways you can do this sustainably. Obviously, take a look at this list. My biggest thing is, number one, is I lean into sharing personal stories. You might think, well, why does anybody want to hear about my life? I'm a lawyer. They just want to hear legal tips. Not true. If you're with them at a conference, again, they will be interested in, oh, well, what kind of sports do you like? What are some of your hobbies? When you travel, where do you go? Things like that. If you can find a way to tie it back to your work or your career, even better. But sharing things about you that are personal are easy because you're talking about something that is just a story or an anecdote from the past. And it also is engaging, and it allows people to get to know you. And if they get to know you, they will kind of remember you better, like you better, et cetera. So I lean into that quite a bit. And some of these other ways, repurpose research. So maybe you've done a memo for a client, repurpose it, turn it into a blog post. If you have a really long article that you've written, take it and chop it up into bite-sized pieces, and those could be separate LinkedIn posts. You have a blog, turn on the camera, read that blog out loud, boom, you've got a video. You want to interview if you're an attorney in, let's say real estate, and you want to interview real estate owners, boom, LinkedIn Live, host a show, etc. If you can find ways to make this sustainable and even fun for you, LinkedIn is never going to be a chore. It's going to be the best content strategy that you can possibly have. Lastly, use AI to help you post on LinkedIn. I see people posting, copy pasting from ChatGPT all the time. I don't like it. I can tell when they're doing this. And frankly, a lot of other people can tell too, but it doesn't mean that you can't use it. So here are 3 ways that I think you can use LinkedIn. And frankly, you can do it as step-by-step 1, 2, and 3. So number 1, go to ChatGPT, for example, or your AI tool of choice. Share a little story. You can add a couple sentences and just tell ChatGPT, prompt it to create a LinkedIn post for you using that story. It'll write something that doesn't sound like you, but it has the bones of a LinkedIn post. Number 1. Number 2, sorry, I meant to say create some themes or create some LinkedIn post topics. Number 2, go to ChatGPT, take one of those themes and tell it to expand it into a draft of a LinkedIn post. And then, of course, you can use it to edit your style. If it comes out too formal, you can say be more informal. If it comes out too informal, you can tell it to be more formal. And then when you have something that you really like, make the final touches of yourself. Make it sound like you. Double check what it's saying. Obviously, if you're giving like tips about legal, any aspects of the law that you practice, make sure, of course, that it's correct. But I think AI is really great. I use it sometimes to double check what I'm writing, etc. So I hope that's been helpful for you all. This was so much information. I wish I could have had another half an hour, but so many great speakers. So thank you all for being here with me. Please find me on LinkedIn, Roman Zelichenko. I didn't put my name here again, but you'll get the presentation. And I did, just because we're here, I wanted to give basically a promo to folks. One thing that I thought would be useful for folks here, if you actually want to lean into LinkedIn, I do LinkedIn profile audits. So I look at your profile, give you a report of what I think is good and what I think, more importantly, you can lean into and sort of make it better. You get a report out of it, and then a one-on-one hour-long consultation talking through your profile and LinkedIn strategy. It's usually $600. So here I'm offering it for folks for 450. If you want to do this in 2 months, 3 months, and you're here at this presentation, I will obviously award or honor this deal. So hit me up. And even if not with this, find me on LinkedIn, ask me questions, and let's chat. So that was a lot. I hope that was valuable and interesting. So thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun. Speed round.
Roman, thank you so much. That was fantastic. It's a ton of information, I know, but it is all great. And folks, if you're wondering, we did most of our promotion for this event through LinkedIn. So and a lot of it was using strategies that Roman has taught us over the years. So thank you, Roman, for joining us today. We have our next speaker is up and ready to go, and I am looking forward to this. Our next speaker is Saja Raoof, the owner of Saja Raoof Law. Saja is is a San Francisco-based business immigration attorney. She's the daughter of an alien of extraordinary ability, which is a visa classification which recognized her dad's distinguished career in medical education. Her family background is part of the reason that she chose to devote her career to serving talented foreign nationals interested in pursuing the American dream through employment-based visas, much like my parents. Wallflower Power, How Introverts Can Succeed at Networking is the name of her talk. She's going to share tips on how introverts can not only survive, but thrive at networking. The presentation is going to go over how introverts can leverage their strengths, build meaningful relationships, and grow their networks. Without further ado, I give you Saja Raoof.
Thank you, LA. Provisors is a great organization, especially if you're an extrovert. I met LA in late 2017, and he strongly encouraged me to join Provisors, which I hadn't heard of, and I had never belonged to a networking organization before. So I did, and I overheard that statement early on in my Provisors journey in 2018. And I told myself, if this is a great organization for extroverts, that means I'm going to fall flat on my face in this organization. I'm not just an introvert by nature, and I didn't have any exposure to networking before joining Provisors, but I grew up in a part of the world that encouraged girls and women to be unseen and unheard as a matter of virtue. When I joined Provisors, I did not say a word my first year in Provisors. My voice was only heard when my group leader called on me to introduce myself, or when I owed somebody a testimonial for a referral, which is a public, roughly 1 minute long thank you to another Provisors member to acknowledge them for thinking of you, in my case, for an immigration referral. My voice was also heard that first year in Provisors during an icebreaker activity when somebody criticized Duran Duran, and even I couldn't stand for that. To make matters worse, a few months into my Provisors membership, I was diagnosed with adult onset type 1 diabetes. Until that point, I didn't know that you could get type 1 as an adult. I thought it was a typo in the lab results. But sure enough, I can do anything I put my mind to except produce insulin. And this means I have to wear 2 devices at all times, a constant glucose monitor and an insulin pump. So as if I wasn't self-conscious enough during networking meetings, now I had to contend with a chronic disease that is visible and draws attention. I didn't tell anyone outside my close friends and family for roughly the first 6 to 12 months of my diagnosis, because I thought it would impact my referability as an immigration lawyer. I thought people wouldn't want to refer to me because I could have a medical emergency in the middle of the case or even die on them. And I didn't want to be pigeonholed as the diabetic, somehow limited immigration lawyer. So I'm trying to keep this disease invisible, but at meetings, my alerts would go off from my devices. And unlike a cell phone, you cannot mute them. Their whole job is to keep you alive and alert you when your blood sugar is going too high or too low. So during provisors meetings, when my alerts would go off, as if I wasn't already uncomfortable enough, I would shrink even further when people turned around and looked at me with my alerts going off. It took me 8 months to guest at other chapters and provisors. The secret to success in provisors is guesting, attending other home groups. And I understood that, but I was too scared to guest for 8 months. And I could only do that after reading a book titled Networking for People Who Hate Networking twice. And I told myself, I'm not going to learn how to network from a book any more than I can learn swimming from a book. So I forced myself, I put myself out there. One of the most challenging things in my career was to force myself to guest my first year in provisors. I emailed my regional director in the Bay Area in early 2020 and told him about that book. And I said, if you have any members who are struggling with networking, I highly recommend this book. And his response was, I have my sights on you to be group leader of San Francisco 14, which I thought was a joke. I imagined he had 9 other candidates lined up. Sure enough, he formally invited me in December 2020, and I accepted. From there, I went on to stun myself and others. In my first year as group leader of San Francisco 14, I launched the largest new home group in Provisors history. I led the 2 largest meetings in Provisors history. Some people who were here were there that day, Star Wars Day of 2021. We had 160 members attend. My group, after that, became the largest home group in the country. I was recognized as Group Leader of the Year in Provisors. And in my second year as group leader of San Francisco 14, I became SF14 became one of 2 home groups in the country to get to 50 members. All of this happened, and I am still an introvert. I still get butterflies in my stomach in the days and hours leading up to running a meeting or speaking publicly. I still rejoice when somebody cancels a coffee date. And I still strategize my alone time at social events. I'm going to share with you 4 tips on how I got from here to there while preserving my nature as an introvert. So I invite everyone in the chat to put just one word. What comes to mind when I say extrovert? What do you think of when you hear extrovert? Loud, annoying. Thank you, Jen. Get your energy from others, comfortable in new groups. Steve Fretzin, outgoing salesperson. So according to the book, Networking for People Who Hate Networking, and its author is Devorah Zak, and I'll share that book. This is my networking Bible. I have recommended it and gifted it to more people than I can count. She defines those who hail from extra land as moving in packs. They freely share the majority of thoughts that enter their minds. They pursue new interests regularly, and they make friends at every turn in the road. In Provisors, I would define an extrovert as someone who's gregarious, jumps out of bed to attend meetings, and it seems like they were born to network. So what comes to mind, please enter in the chat when you hear introvert. Reserved, shy, quiet, leave me alone, depleted by interactions. Thinks back on recent interaction, that is a constant ongoing struggle, Roman. needs downtime to recharge, Bruce says Saja. So the book defines those from Introville. They can be identified by a propensity to vanish alone, a proclivity to make decisions while staring out a window or taking a brisk, uninterrupted walk. Their depth of concentration could cause them to miss an earthquake from its very epicenter. I would define an introvert in improvisers as someone who is differently connected. So they dread gatherings. When they network, they feel out of place like a vegan at a steakhouse, and they mistakenly think that they are at a disadvantage. And I'd like to underscore mistakenly here. Introverts have special strengths that if they leverage in networking, they can really get ahead. The first tip to do that is to manage your energy. Given that introverts find interactions with people to be draining, on the days that I run a San Francisco 14 meeting, the first Tuesday of every month, it's automatically blocked off in my calendar. It is impossible to get a hold of me at the day that I run a San Francisco 14 meeting. Short of a fire drill, you cannot reach me. The meetings are usually large, very intensive, fast paced, and they drain all of my energy out of me. And I usually do not schedule client appointments or what's called troika, a 3-person meeting after a provisor's meeting, or any sort of human interaction of the sort after I run a San Francisco 14 meeting. The same thing applies, let's say before a troika. I schedule those in the afternoon so that the morning is reserved for the energy I need to do deep work, concentration on my cases. If talking on the phone drains you, and just in my case, seeing the phone ring alarms me, I don't take phone calls right before I go into a client meeting. I don't take phone calls right before going into a networking social. Devora Zach says that she, the author of Networking for People Who Hate Networking, she says that she was at a Mensa conference and she was sitting alone. And somebody came to her and said, "Is this how you network?" And her response was actually yes, because she was recharging her batteries and stepping away from the crowd to gather her strength and then go into the room, talk to people, and then step away strategically. This is where bathroom breaks come in, very useful for introverts. And so it's important that you intentionally manage your energy. Otherwise, if you have back-to-back networking meetings in a day, you'll be depleted and it won't be a good use of your energy. Tip number 2 is create strategic alliances with both extroverts and introverts. So when I became a group leader, I received a very good tip from my regional director, Ian. He said, you always choose a GLA, a group leader assistant, which is your right-hand person in your group improvisers. And he told me, choose someone whose personality is different than yours. Up until that point, I was so underconnected improvisers that it took me a long time to think of who to choose as my GLA. I wasn't close enough to anyone improvisers after having been in it for over 2 years to invite someone to become my GLA. So when he told me think of someone whose personality is different than yours, I invited Brittany Batorf because she was a section leader of the Bar Association of San Francisco, and I had loved her presence at a conference that she facilitated, and luckily she said yes. Since then, there are situations that my executive committee knows that I need their support with. And that is interviewing candidates for membership in San Francisco 14. They know that their job is to do the talking while I quietly judge. In the networking half hour between 7 to 7:30, every provisor's meeting is preceded by a half hour for informal networking. And my EC knows that that is the most excruciating part of being a group leader for me. When people come into the room and I have to greet them, and engage in that most excruciating product of human civilization, small talk. So I delegate the small talk to my EC, the extroverts in my EC. I also have strategic alliances with introverts. So when I'm going to a social, I will make plans to go with a fellow introvert. That way, if I'm going to get cold feet, I have accountability, someone is waiting for me to pick them up. And we show up a little bit late and we leave a little bit early, and we both understand and respect each other's boundaries around social interactions, and it works together to sync our energies. We have also alliances with extroverts when I go to socials. So I'll go with them, they'll do the talking, and I just follow them around and smile and spare myself the painful small talk. My third tip for you is embrace the spotlight. And this may be counterintuitive, but Zach, the author of Networking for People Hate Networking, says that when she was in college, she used to be a DJ, which may not appear as an ideal option for an introvert, but it puts the spotlight on her without engaging with other people. And that is a better use of her energy than perhaps being a bartender, where you do have to engage with people. Johnny Carson was an extreme introvert. He went for years without giving interviews, and he went home after the show rather than socialize. And this is an example of an introvert who made good use of the spotlight to elevate their profile, keep themselves top of mind in a networking context, and raise their profile. If you're still not convinced, I'm not sure if the audio will work, but this is a video from Oprah where she says that she is an introvert and she loves hiding out in the bathroom, and people don't believe it when she says that she's an introvert, but her energy is actually drained when she talks about when she runs her show and when she interacts with people. My fourth tip for you is generosity. And this is the most important one for both introverts and extroverts, actually. My guiding principle here is from my friend Matthew Cale, who says, when you shine light on others, it reflects on you. And this is great news for introverts because we are wired to prefer to put the attention on other people and deflect it off of ourselves. So this is a strength that we are well wired and prepared for. Early on in the pandemic, I heard about a company called Glucose Thrive. Every type 1 diabetic needs to carry on them at all times sugar and glucagon in case their blood sugar goes too low. If you're a frontline worker, that would be a hassle to carry it on your body. So Glucose Thrive it creates necklaces that have glucose gel, and it was sending them for free to type 1 diabetic frontline workers early on during COVID. When I heard about them, I was so touched by their generosity of supporting diabetic frontline workers that I purchased one and I wore it, and I recorded a video of myself inviting people to support Glucose Thrive, and I posted it on my LinkedIn. Once I stopped obsessing about how I would be perceived as a diabetic attorney, and once I put the focus on the frontline workers whose immunity is more compromised than non-diabetics, and once I started supporting this company that was going out of its way to support frontline workers, I relieved all my anxiety that I had about how I would be perceived, and I took it even a step further and became very public about it, and discovered to my delight that it actually did not impact my referability. My devices have gone off during consultations with potential new clients, and they've hired me anyway. And it turns out that making generosity the driving force in your networking is fundamental. In a provisor's context, you receive, as I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, you receive testimonials when you give referrals at provisors' meetings. And this is somewhere where I have really, my signature in provisors is that I give elaborate testimonials to people who give me referrals. And when I shine light on them, it reflects on me, it makes me look good. And when I give to others, I encourage them to talk about what I do, which is more memorable than if I were to talk about what I do as a business immigration lawyer. Another book that I recommend is mentioned that I'll get to in just a minute. It mentions that history was made by introvert-extrovert pairs, like Watson and Crick, McCartney and Lennon, Jobs and Wozniak. According to Quiet by Susan Cain, the civil rights movement needed both MLK Jr.'s extroverted energy and Rosa Parks's introverted energy in order to succeed. When Rosa Parks passed away, her obituaries described her as having the courage of a lion, yet she was timid and shy. She had radical humility and quiet fortitude. So whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, networking is something that you can succeed and thrive at and bring your own unique energy to. Provisors is a great organization for extroverts, but it's also a great organization for introverts. Thank you.
Saja, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. We do have some time for questions for Saja. She is one of the best networkers that I know. So if you have any questions for her, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, she will give you some phenomenal answers. Saja, while people are coming up with their questions, you mentioned Provisors a lot. Can you give us just a quick 30-second overview of what that organization is?
It's a networking organization that's been around since the late 80s. It's approaching 10,000 members nationwide at the moment, and it's for senior level trusted advisors, attorneys, bankers, CPAs, wealth advisors, and coaches. And it's been especially growing during COVID. What I've gotten, the referrals are only the surface of what I've gotten out of provisors. It's been a phenomenal resource for my clients, and I've personally grown more than I can express right now.
Yeah, it's a fantastic organization. What's the best way if someone's interested to learn more about it? Because they don't, do a lot of advertising. They kind of fly under the radar.
They are an invite-only organization. My San Francisco 14's October 1st meeting is actually the most important one of the year. We are hosting as our keynote speaker, Robert Gillette, who gave me a testimonial back in 2019 that is part of the reason why I am still an immigration attorney today. And he'll be workshopping with us how to give great testimonials. So if you'd like to attend that meeting to get a feel for provisors, let me know. I'll link to my email in the chat.
Awesome. Fantastic. And Saja, if people want to reach out with you and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
My LinkedIn, Saja Raoof, and my website is sar.law.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Saja. This was a phenomenal presentation. Really appreciate you coming forward and being frank, honest, and so inspiring to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was something, everybody. I hope you really appreciated that as much as I did. We are heading into a break, which I think we all need after Saja's performance. That was really, really something. Okay, everybody. Well, we are right up against it. We are down to our final speaker of the day today, and you are in for a real treat. Not that the rest of the day has been anything but. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. There we go. All right. So our last presentation of the day is Gary Johnson using neuroscience and structure to maximize consultation successes. For over 28 years, Gary's been developing the most profitable business development strategies that are customized for the individual. Gary has worked with all types of attorneys across all practice areas, from corporate transaction attorneys to personal injury to estate planning to criminal defense and everything in between. What sets Gary apart is that he develops customized strategies and empowers his clients on how to effectively implement those strategies. So he gives you the theory and the practice and helps you along the way. It's my pleasure to introduce Gary Johnson.
Thank you, Alay. So let me just make sure. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And you can see my slides?
Not yet.
For real?
For real, are you sharing?
Yeah. Hold on.
Oh, I can see him now.
Ah,
Yep, you're good to go.
okay, let's try that again. Okay, you can see that now.
Yep, maximizing consultation success.
Fantastic. Okay. Closing the business sounds either sexy or it can sound something like this. Very, very sleazy. And most attorneys I find see a consultation as this, as very slimy. Yet consultations are an integral part of our business development. They can make or break almost every single practice. And my objective today is to give you some simple yet powerful and non-sleazy takeaways that you can implement immediately and that will impact your effectiveness in bringing in more clients and more ideal clients, which is what we all want. So let's start with the reasons why we hate to do consultations. So here are some of the top ones that I hear from my clients. They say, I don't want to be desperate or be seen as desperate or be seen as aggressive or manipulative. I don't want to get rejection or I don't want to waste my time, which is why a lot of attorneys will charge for their consultations because they're like, I don't want the person to glean all of the information from me and do it on their own. And so these are a lot of reasons that I hear from my clients, and I'm wondering, do these also resonate with you? Because if they do, we need to actually work on our mindset first, because there's a lot of pressure in doing a consultation, especially when you need the business. And in order for somebody to work with you, you've got to get them to sign your engagement letter. And most of the reasons why we hate consultations are because of limiting beliefs, like they're going to reject me, or I do not know if they will actually pay for my services or pay me what I think that I am worth. Well, being comfortable with the consultation starts with letting go of these limiting beliefs. Why? Because they don't enhance your chances of actually earning the business. They only hurt your confidence. Which doesn't help out with a consultation. So let go of that negative self-talk. Such an important element because we should instead make more empowering, confident self-talk. Like, I can provide them enormous value. Something like, I look forward to exploring whether we should work together. Or during the consultation, they're actually going to walk away with more confidence in speaking with me. Or I will do my best to decrease their stress so that they can make better decisions. Now, I know that this sounds a little woo-woo, but studies have shown that when you have a healthy, positive mindset, your chances of landing business actually goes up dramatically. So besides letting go of your limiting beliefs, another thing that you can do to improve your confidence is make the consultation into a conversation. This will take the pressure off of you. Your main objection should not be, oh my God, I have to close them. Instead, it should be to explore if this is going to be a good fit. Don't make the consultation an event. More than likely, this conversation will be ongoing, not just a one-time event. So shift your mindset from selling your services to offering solutions and benefits to your prospective clients' problems. I could talk to you all day long about confidence for hours and hours and hours, but we only have a few minutes. So I would highly recommend the book, The Confident Mind. It is by Dr. Nate Sinzer, and it's a game changer. It was a game changer for me, but it was also a game changer for most of my attorney clients. Because once you have the right mindset, then you can actually tackle the consultation. It'll give you the best opportunity for success. So let's get into the actual consultation. So I had a estate planning attorney that would constantly be asked, how much do your estate plans cost that you do? And as soon as he said the price, he usually lost the deal. And it wasn't because he was charging too much. It was because he provided no perceived value to the client. He acted like he was a commodity, even though he didn't want to act that way. And as soon as he implemented this simple, and it's a very simple 4-part formula that I'm going to share with you, he not only became the expert, but price was less of an objection, and it will typically always be an objection, but it was less of one. And the value he gave to his clients was increased. Here's another example. M&A attorney with a mid-tier firm. She could not win any business from, she wasn't able to win any business from a large firm. So if a large firm was on the matter, she was done. She couldn't compete against them, and she hated going up against them. She said it was a dog and pony show. The only thing that won the business was an incredible pitch deck, she would say, or that the large law firm had lots of big clients behind them. She thought all the investment bankers just wanted this and she couldn't compete. And I don't know if you can actually relate to this, but there's a lot of people that can when they're going up against what we call the big dogs. Now, once she started to do the 4-part formula, she actually didn't even need a pitch deck. She didn't have to spend all that time on that. And she also didn't have a laundry list of clients that she needed in order to close the business. So how do we have a lucrative consultation? Well, it's very simple. By using this 4-part formula. Number 1, uncover what they need. The questions that you ask should uncover their needs, their wants, and their pains. It will also show you as the expert. Now, let me explain that a little bit. When you're asking the questions, they're thinking to themselves, I didn't think about that. Holy cow, I didn't think about that. Wow. All of these different questions enable you to be the expert. And also, the more you ask, the more you're going to uncover, and the better chances that you actually have of landing the client. Neurologically, the more pain that they feel, the better chances of them making this real or actually perceived to be real, which will then enable them to take action. So don't assume that you know what they need. Ask and allow them to tell you. Now, once you do this, please do not be prescriptive on this point. Most attorneys just want to jump straight into it. And they're like, I'm a problem solver. I'm going to go. Let's do this. Resist the temptation. Please resist the temptation. There'll be a time for that. So we uncover what they need. The next step is to identify what success looks like. Find out what their financial, what their strategic, what their emotional and physical benefits that they're looking for. Since they are telling you, it allows them to actually envision working with you successfully. It is not your words, it's theirs, which is a very powerful persuasion technique. Also, if they are delusional or unrealistic, you know that you either need to reframe their reality or you need to let them know that it's not a good fit and potentially you can refer them over to someone else. Give you an example of this last point. I had a prospective client who I met with, and I asked them this question: what does success look like for you? And he said, I want to take my firm to $20 million in revenue. I said, okay. What was it last year? And he said, $200,000. And he was a solo. And I said, okay. What makes you think that in a year's time, you're going to be able to go from 200,000 to 20 million? He said, oh, well, Andy, who was referred over, or who referred him over to me, said, you did great stuff for him. And I thought you could do the same thing for me. He unfortunately was delusional, because all of you know that in order to go from 200,000 to 20 million, you have to have a lot of infrastructure. You have to have a lot of attorneys that are working on that. That takes years upon years. But the good part is that it enabled me to say we were not the good fit. I could have worked with him, but let me tell you, he would have been sorely disappointed, because his idea of what success would be, I couldn't even come close to after a full year. Even if we had tripled his business, it wouldn't have made him happy. So we don't want to work with those two. So it's so important to really identify what success looks like. So we've uncovered what they need. We've identified what success looks like. Now we need to go to number 3, which is ask if they need immediate help with this problem, whatever that problem may be. Be specific with the items that they told you that they need help with. This is extremely important, because this repetition does several things. It allows the potential client to know that you've heard and understand what they are going through. It also allows you to understand whether you're on the right track. Next thing is it emphasizes urgency and also tells you whether you are in the game or not. And this saves you a ton of time, like I just told you about that, unfortunately, delusional prospective client. Don't be afraid of also getting objections, because this is typically the time where we will get objections. Objections are absolutely fantastic. The reason why I say that is because they are signs that the prospective client is actually interested in you solving their issues. So, objections typically happen for 2 reasons: misunderstandings and valid concerns. Now, objections are evidence of how your prospect perceives you and your offering. So let's tackle each of these so that you can get better results. So the first one is misunderstandings. Misunderstandings can be addressed by doing this. First, restate the objection just by repeating what you've heard, and then asking them, was this your concern? Also, next one, step into the objection with confidence. This is why mindset is so important. Objections can hurt. Let me just put that right out there. They can definitely hurt, but it is crucial not to sink into fears of losing your potential client. Instead, lean in closer to them. If you're with them, like in person, actually physically lean in. If you're on a Zoom call, also lean into this because it sends a strong subconscious message that you're not afraid. Next is hear them out. Suspend your judgment and actively listen to their concerns. If they believe they are right, they are. So understand where they are coming from so that you can help them overcome their hesitation. And then calmly and tangibly demonstrate your potential. You can do this through stories and also through different testimonials. And then lastly, finish the conversation by asking them, did this clear up your concerns? Don't be afraid of that. Please do not be afraid of that. Objections are one of the best things that you can have. Now, there's another type of objection, which is valid concerns. And valid concerns are less rational than misunderstandings. They are rooted in fear of making the wrong decision. So valid concerns show up because you didn't demonstrate your value strongly enough to outweigh their perceived cost of, let's say, time, money, or resources. So here are 5 steps to reframe objections so your prospect feels reassured that they are making a safe choice. By the way, the first 3 are identical to the misunderstanding objection. So we want to restate their concerns. We want to step into the objection. We want to wait for their feedback. And then we want to state our personal opinion. Their objection has to do more with their perception. So instead, agree or disagree with their statement by stating your opinion and helping them see your point of view. This isn't enough to just completely dissolve their concerns, but it's a start. And then you demonstrate the positives. So let me give you an example of this. A valid concern may be your price is too high. But however, price is relative. We don't always buy the cheapest option. We buy what proves the most value for the right price. So if price is an objection, first understand why they have this objection. Readdress the value you are delivering and ensure it is right for them. Don't be afraid to challenge an objection that seems understandable. Remind them of the value you bring. Addressing objections head on really makes an enormous statement. And lean into objections. Don't stammer or dance around the questions, but instead hit them straight on with confidence. This will allow the potential client to actually be a whole lot more comfortable in choosing you to work with. So we've uncovered what they need. We've identified what success looks like. We've asked them if they need immediate help with this. And then the 4th one is let them know that they are an ideal client for you. So why do this? Because we do our best work with our ideal clients. They want to know this. So tell them, be specific with 2 or 3 elements of what makes them an ideal client. By doing this, they will understand that you've heard them, which creates tons of trust in this new relationship, which helps you to get the agreement. And the other thing that I would also say is give them an attack plan or maybe a glimpse into the attack plan. This is not giving them legal advice, but simply laying out what you plan on doing for them and the results that you will be working towards. And by the way, here's a hint. They already told you what you will be working towards or what those results are that they want. So it again reaffirms to them that this person actually gets me. And yes, that's exactly what I want. So make sure that you are specific. Again, it allows your prospective client to envision working with you. And it also shows how confident you are about handling their issues. So to sum it up, start with a confident mindset. Let go of your limiting beliefs. Have a positive, empowering, confident self-talk. Make this into a conversation, not an event, and shift your mindset from selling your services to offering solutions and benefits to your prospective clients' problems. Then execute the simple 4-part formula. Uncover what they need, identify what success looks like, ask if they need help with, whatever they said that they need help with, and be specific about this. Lean into the objections and let them know that they are an ideal client for you. And I assure you that if you do these simple elements, your consultations will be more lucrative, less pressure filled, and more enjoyable for you and the potential client. You also won't be ever seen as a total sleazeball. And that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. We do have a few minutes for questions. So if anyone has any questions for Gary Johnson around consultations, this would be a great time. And Gary, while they're typing that in, we didn't talk a little bit about numbers. There's so much to unpack around consultations. We could have been here, for hours.
Yeah.
But what is what would you say is like a recommended, percentage success rate as far as what percentage of clients you should get from your consultations, which gives you a sense you're doing things right?
Yeah, it should be right in that 70 to 80%. Now, a lot of people think, oh, it should be 100%. It's not. If it's 100%, you're probably not going after the right individuals, or you're not charging enough money. So we always want to push that element. I mean, one of the things I know that you and I both work on with our clients is how do we get them to increase their hourly, right? How do we get them to increase their fees? And if we're constantly pushing that up, we're going to get people that are going to say, no, not for me, which is okay. We can't win them all. The other thing is if you're going for 70%, also take some pressure off of you. Because if you're going for 100% and you don't land it, you feel like a failure. What's going to happen the next time that you need to do a consultation? You're going to go, God, I hope I don't screw this up. I hope I get this. Oh my gosh. Oh, everybody else says it's so much easier. Oh, no. It's not true. It's not true. So we need to take that off of our shoulders.
Awesome. Thank you. A question from the audience. What was the book that you recommended again?
The Confident Mind by Dr. Nate Zinzer. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. It is, let me just compare it to Saja's book. What Saja's book was for her, people that hate networking, this one is for me. Helps me out in so many different ways. I constantly go back to it. I have read it now. I'm going on my 7th time of reading it. And I always get new nuggets from it. He's got great stories. He was a coach for Eli Manning before he won his Super Bowl. Lots of Olympians, lots of really great athletes, and also executives. So it's a wonderful thing. And there's so many myths in there that he debunks about confidence too.
Awesome. Thank you. Gary, if people want to reach you, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn. Best way is LinkedIn because I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I do weekly videos, so you could actually check out some of the stuff that I put on there. You'll understand how crazy I am through the videos. You'll go, oh, this is what it's like to work with them. But yeah, those are the best ways. I mean, you can also email me at garyj@j2marketingconsultants.com, but LinkedIn is usually the best way.
Awesome. Gary, thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you for having
and best
me on
practices today. It's great. Well, as we are wrapping up with our first day, don't go anywhere yet. We've got some exciting stuff for you. Want to give a quick preview about day 2. So we have Raquel Gomes kicking us off about being a workaholic and really wearing that as a badge of honor, which is something I can really relate to. It's all about boosting law firm productivity, and she kicks us off with that second day. Bruce LaFetra then has an awesome talk prepared about the expert trap. We're going to talk a little bit about podcasting and how you can use that. And then an out of the box talk on designing a law practice you love. We're going to wrap up with how to attract better clients. And then an attorney is going to talk to us a little bit about how she has structured her law firm so it provides everything that she wants. So we have an amazing day 2 set up for you. If you thought day 1 was good, day 2 will be just as good. Thank you again for investing in yourselves. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you got a lot out of today, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. I am going to stay on the line here. If anyone has any questions or wants to talk, I'm going to be around for the next 5-10 minutes.